Hello, I'm Clare Whitfield. I'm the author of Poor Girls. And Poor Girls is about a waitress called Eleanor, who it's a fictional retelling of her who joins the 40 Elephants, the most successful female run crime syndicate in the history of the UK, if not Europe, we believe. So the 40 Elephants are real, but the retelling is very much fictional. How would I describe my book in 3 words? Rambunctious, audacious, mischievous. What is the most essential component of a great heist story? Well, it's got to be the heist, isn't it? It's got to be high stakes. The risk has got to be everything. It's got to be all or nothing. What was the most exciting thing I discovered while researching the 40 Elephants? Got to say it was the characters I became intrigued and beguiled by. You can't make it up. These women were almost too fictional to be true. You had Queen Alice, who was 5'9", wore fur coats, wore diamonds on every finger, could knock out a man. And then you had her best mate, who was little Maggie Hill, who was as feisty as Alice was cool. And yeah, they were just such infectiously complex, flawed, and ambitious characters, really ambitious women at a time when I think sometimes we forget that we've always been the way we are. It's easy to believe we were different back then, but no, that we were as feisty and raging and angry and loving and sisterly back then as we are now. Which character in Poor Girls do I relate to the most and why? Do you know what? I'd say it was a mixture of Nell, obviously, as the main character, or Eleanor, as she starts as the waitress and then becomes Nell when she joins the 40 Elephants. She goes through a sort of metamorphosis, if you will. And also her nemesis, which is PC Bevan. I think those are the two I relate to because it was both sides of the moral sort of guardrail that was running central through, and they both hop on either side. So I say I relate to both of those. What's harder to write, the adrenaline rush of a chase scene or the more intimate moments? I do love a chase scene. I like the excitement, and I think that's probably because I spend most of my life sat behind a desk. So it's the most chasing I do. And intimate moments, they can be tricky, but again, it depends on the character. If I were recruited into a 1920s all-female crime syndicate, the role I'd play in the gang is, if there's any spreadsheets that need doing or a Gantt chart for a project plan, organising. I can organise. I can do military ops organisation and implementation. So I'd like to be in charge of strategy and operational planning. I am terrible of getting caught and things like that. I would not have the guts or balls to do what these ladies did. So don't put me out in the field. The best or worst piece of writing advice I have ever received is, I'd say it's the best and worst. Is there's this thing that goes around and everyone will have heard about, you've got to write what you know. And it's easy to take, that is such a conceptual, vague sentence that it can be applied in so many different ways. I need more information. So I'd say write what you know in terms of being human. It's good advice, but believe it or not, I have never joined a female crime syndicate or robbed a jeweler's, I promise. So it is that piece of advice is the best and worst advice in one, I would say. You've got to use it sparingly. So write what you know, I would say, about being human, and being empathetic and being able to get out of your own perspective is a great thing, but you don't need to have been in a crime syndicate, I don't think. If I found myself hiding out in the underworld of 1920s London, the book I'd want to have with me is, this is tough. I'd say The Garden of the Beast by Eric Larson is a non-fiction book. That's about the American ambassador to Berlin in the early 30s. That's really interesting. I'd say fiction. Do you know what? I'm going to go back to Gone Girl by Gillian Flynn. I will never get bored of reading that book. It really made me want to write myself reading that book. So I'd go back to that one. If Poor Girls had a soundtrack, what would it sound like? It has a soundtrack. I use Spotify playlists a lot for, like characters might have a song or a sound, and sometimes when I try and get a feeling, a vibe for the characters in the book, I'll pick songs which kind of make me think of scenes. And sometimes, that's the way I come up with scenes. I'll have the story and the characters, put the playlist together, and suddenly, because of the music, it will inspire scenes. So it has a soundtrack, and it's very eclectic. It's very rebellious. There's a bit of punk on there. There's lots of 80s. There's lots of Debbie Harry. There's lots of, it's very eclectic, actually. Yeah. What one thing would I like readers to take away from Poor Girls? I would say it's the sensation of female camaraderie as I've experienced it, and the spectrum of women. They can be soft and feminine, and at the same time you can be hard as nails and quite dangerous. And it's to take away that women and men the same are fully complex creatures, and we've got everything inside us. We're not one-dimensional. That's what I'd like to take. And that female camaraderie, when you get a group of women together and you turn silly and you get up to mischief, that's what I'd like people to take away.